Today on Real Estate Success, the Whissel Way podcast, Kyle and I are going to break down how to scale your real estate business from solo agent to team leader if you so choose. We're going to talk about the pitfalls to avoid. We're going to talk about the ways to do it and when to grow, and a little bit of everything in between. That's all on this week's episode of the Whissel Way podcast.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited for this. I feel like this is an area where I can kind of pay it forward. There's a lot of people that helped me get to where I am today at 115 agents. We're selling 20 to 30 homes a week. By the time this year is over, we'll sell $600+ million worth of real estate in Southern California. So I've learned a lot along the way to growing this team. A lot of people have helped me get to where I am. And today I want to just do my part to give back and help you get to where it is that you want to get to. So I'm excited for you to join us. Welcome to the Whissel Way podcast. My name is Kyle Whissel, your host with eXp Realty in San Diego.
I'm Bryan Koci here at Whissel Realty Group.
The goal of the show is to give you the tools, techniques, and tactics to go out there and crush it in your business. The way that we do that is to answer the questions that you have for Bryan and I. So if you ever have a question you want to have us answer, you can always go to thewhisselway.com. You can subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel. You can join our referral list for everybody leaving California, get on our email newsletter and private Facebook group where we share a lot of tips and tricks of what we're working on internally in our business. Additionally, if you're looking to level up your content creation game, whether that be audio, video, social, or the combination thereof, we offer a course called the Media Mayor Mastermind. You can get all the details on thewhisselway.com. Let's jump in, Bryan.
So first off, before we talk about the roadmap from going to solo agent to team leader, I want to talk about the pros and cons, because I think people usually think that's the natural progression. But we have a lot of agents even on our team that say, I never want to do that, or I've done that before, I don't want to do it again. Can you talk about some pros of building or becoming a team leader and some cons?
Yeah, it's not for everybody. Just because you see me or somebody else on stage who's putting up these really, really big numbers, it's not always all it's cracked up to be. Just being very candid, I've had multiple years where I've made little to negative money building this team up to where we are today. Today, at scale, the team is very profitable, but there were multiple years along the way where there was no profitability or even negative profitability, where I was having to feed the company to build it. But I saw the clear path of where we were going and how we were going to get to that level and achieve profitability. So you got to make a decision. Is that even what you want? Because running a team, your profit margin is going to decrease significantly from being a solo agent. I mean, that's by far the number one con to running a team, is that your profitability is going to dip versus you being the primary producer. Most agents that are in production, assuming you're a solo agent, not on a team, your profit margin, you should be running at least 80% for most agents, if not higher. If you are on a team, your profit margin is probably 90 to 95% if you're on a team, because the team's taking care of a lot of those expenses for you. So you got to decide, like, are you willing to give up a lot of that margin to be a team leader? That's a big decision you have to make. So hands down, that's a big con to being a team leader. A big pro is that I don't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I get to check out, right? Where when you are an agent, Friday is actually a good day to take off, but Saturday, Sunday, you don't get to take weekends off very often as a real estate agent. Those are usually when you're making your money, right? When make hay when the sun is shining, like that's the weekends.
Yeah.
So it's very tough to take a lot of time off as an individual agent. Now, again, as you start to build a small team, now we should talk, there's different types of teams out there. But if you're a solo agent, you don't get weekends off. You probably don't get nights off. You're probably on call 24/7. Whereas where I'm at today, I'm home by 6 every day. And I don't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Maybe I take a call or a meeting here and there on a Friday, but for the most part, like, I'm off.
And so what I wrote down is leverage. And so part of that is you can take time off.
Yes.
Part of it is you can have some really cool things that you can't have as a solo agent. So we have 4 offices around San Diego and Southern Riverside County. You can't do that and maintain profitability.
So you could do anything. You could have 100 offices and make no money.
But that doesn't make sense, right?
Math doesn't math.
We have a lot of support staff. I'm included in that. As a solo agent, you can't have 25, 35 support staff and run a profitable business, unless you're doing something illegal, I think. So you have a lot more leverage as a team, but then you also have a lot less profitability, a lot higher monthly payment, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're starting behind the eight ball. I mean, our monthly nuts are like $300,000 right now, somewhere around there, before we achieve profitability. Like that's a big nut to take on, because if you have bad months, you can easily be negative six figures. Yeah. So, you've got to be willing to invest, right? For us, we're willing to invest 300 grand a month because we know what's going to be on the other end of that. So there's that. Also, leading a team, it's not for everybody. Not everybody's good at managing people. There's a lot of people, I struggled for a long time because when I was selling homes, I sold over 100 homes in a year. I think my best month was like 20 something homes in a single month. Like for me, I struggled when I moved into being a team leader because I didn't understand why people didn't work harder. Like it just didn't make sense to me. Because me, I'm like, I've always had coaches as I was coming up where I'd talk to a coach and we'd set a goal that like, I'm gonna make 100 phone calls. Well, guess what? A week later, when I had to meet with my coach again, be like, all right, how did it go? I'd be like, well, I got 130 done. Like that would be the call. Where when you go to be a team leader and now you have an agent who sets a goal to make 100 phone calls and you meet with them a week later, you're like, all right, how did it go? Yeah, I didn't get it done. Okay, well, how many calls did you get done? 0. The fuck do you mean 0? 0, like you said you were gonna do 100, you did 0? Like, that's hard. Can you handle having that conversation? Because that conversation is not for everybody.
A pro, you keep doing the cons, I seem to be doing the pros. But a pro is another thing. As you grow a team and you build more leverage, not only for yourself, but for your team, you can also attract a higher level of talent, right? Typically, someone that you may look up to, may do a lot of business, they're not gonna wanna typically join a one-person team, right? And so as you build out team and as you build out leverage for your team members, you can attract higher level of co-workers, so to speak, to level everyone up.
Yeah, and we just finished shooting an episode where we were talking about a lot of systems and processes. Like, I've got such talented people in my organization now that all I have to do is just have a vision of something, and I can lay that out to the team, and they can then take that vision and make it into a reality, and then they can fully integrate it into the business, and they can think through all the little things that I don't think about, because I don't think about what about this, what about that. I just think go. I only have one gear in my gear shifter, and it's forward. I don't have neutral, I don't have reverse. It's just forward. So it's hard for me sometimes to think about those things. So by having a really good team around me that can just take my vision and execute on it, so I don't have to slow down, I can just keep doing what I do and go forward, and they can take care of everything else around me, like that's massively valuable.
Cool.
Because otherwise, if I'm out producing, like I'm out in the field all day, I'm at showings, I'm at listing appointments, I'm in consultations, I'm at networking events, like I can't build any of these systems and processes. Like I'm stuck in the field. And so a lot of people that are very busy, they never take the time to build that stuff out, and their business is a hot mess. And they end up like stressing themselves out and running themselves into the ground, or their business collapses because they do a lot of transactions, but they don't provide good service. And so what ends up happening is they get no repeat and referral business. They're constantly having to chase the next transaction. Whereas if you build your business right, you have the right systems, processes, you take great care of your clients, provide a great experience, you don't ever have to prospect. No, not really, but like you could survive. Like I could survive today without ever making another phone call, and I'd still do dozens of deals a year just from the stuff that's coming inbound because of the systems and processes that have provided a great experience for every client we've worked with.
I love it. Let's move to the next section. Let's talk about the different types of teams. We kind of alluded to it earlier, but we have a solo agent and we have us, which we have 115 agents. There's stuff in the between, and there's probably stuff on the bigger side, right?
I think there's a few bigger teams, but we're definitely one of the biggest now. Not everybody wants 100 plus people. So in my eyes, there's really two choices of where to be with a team. And then there's an area in the middle that a lot of a friend of mine, John Hughes, coined this term like the messy middle. Actually runs a mastermind called the Messy Middle Mastermind, where people get caught. And the messy middle is a dangerous place to be because it's really hard to make profit there. It's the area where I mentioned we had unprofitable years. Like that was getting through that messy middle. So that could be tough. So in my eyes, there's two ideal models for a team. One is keep it very small, keep it very lean. Ideally, it is you as a team leader and the main producer of that team, and you surround yourself with an amazing supporting cast. And there's nothing wrong with that, because if you're the type of person you don't want to have a lot of people, you don't want to have to manage all these people and all the responsibility, you don't want the giant overhead or any of that, like the negatives that we talked about, going out and just being the rock star producer and just building a really good supporting cast around you. A buddy of mine was just talking to him the other day, Tim Smith, like he's a great example of that. Tim is not the best at leading people, but Tim is the best at luxury real estate in Orange County. Like that guy, if I ever had to go up against Tim on a listing appointment, like I probably would just not show. Like I would just be like, dude, Tim, just throw me like $5 and then you can go have it. Like he'd smoke me. He's amazing. He's the guy that needs the small team where he just has a great supporting cast and all he's doing is sitting in front of clients all day long. And so what kind of supporting cast does that look like? I've actually modeled this, like if everything blew up today and I had to start tomorrow and build a small team, how would I do it? First hire, you got to have a rock star admin is the first hire. This person basically does everything. They're your listing coordinator, transaction coordinator, your marketer. They're your managing and just doing assistant work. Initially, it's a rock star admin. That's got to be the first hire. Next hire, I'm hiring an ISA. So I'm hiring somebody just to generate and nurture leads for me. And that way they can just tee me up and I can just be going on appointments, because that's the highest and best use of my time, is to be going on appointments. So this is somebody who's taking all the new lead flow that's coming in, they're nurturing it, they're setting appointments up, just getting me out in the field as much as humanly possible. Next hire is then I'm going to hire a junior agent, or a lot of people call it a buyer's agent, but I would call it a junior agent. This person's coming in to take on the leads that either, if I'm over capacity, they're taking them on. They're also taking on some of the leads that maybe that I'm not best suited to. So maybe it's the lower price points, maybe it's the buyers, right? Whatever the case may be, they're taking off some of the more tedious work so I can focus on the highest and best use of my time, which is going on higher end listing appointments. And they can also allow me to take a vacation, which is important because there's a lot of people, solo agents, you can't take a vacation sometimes. So if I'm running this small team, I need to be able to go on a damn vacation. And so if you have that junior agent, they're with you a lot. They're shadowing you on a lot of your appointments. They know your systems, your processes, your model inside and out. They could take that $2 million listing appointment for you because you've groomed them, right? So that allows you to be able to go out and do family trips and just have some self-care time. And then I would hire a marketing person. So as the organization continues to grow and you got to feed both of those, me and the junior agent, then I would hire a badass marketer to come in and oversee the entire marketing of the company. So that's like my little model of like a small team. And that team can be very, very profitable because you only have a few salaries. But you're the one who's doing the majority of the production. You got somebody supporting you doing the minority of the production. But you have enough people surrounding you to where you're not having to do a lot of the tedious tasks that bog you down.
Yeah, and it helps keep you streamlined. I've been feeling a lot of manicness lately. And so when you're manic, you're not the most productive as possible. You're trying to do 100 things at once and you do about 2 of them poorly. Yeah. Don't look at the stuff I've done in the last 2 months. So yeah, that helps keep your mind right. You're going in the right direction. You're taking care of your clients well, all of that. All right, so that's type 1. What's the second type?
Then you're going to go through this messy middle phase. It's going to be really hard to be profitable as you scale. I think there's going to be a time period there where you're going to have more staff than you need as you increase your agent count, and it could get expensive, especially where a lot of people struggle. This is where I see one of the biggest mistakes be made as people scale up is they try to get out of production too soon. And then this is what I'm really passionate about. Like, I'm excited to share this part with you because there's a lot of people who are not running their business properly. They're running one P&L for the entire business. The business and your production as an agent are two separate businesses. They're two. You need to run two separate P&Ls if you're going to do this the right way. What ends up happening is a lot of the teams that are out there are actually losing money. The team leader doesn't realize they're losing money because they're masking the team losing money with their own production. If you're going to run this thing the right way, you need to be on a split the same way that an agent on your team is on a split. So you've got to look at the P&L of the business on its own, and then you need to look at the production of you as the agent on its own. Because as you get out of production, you're going to replace yourself with an agent. Well, if you've been putting all of that into one bucket, you're thinking you're making more money than you are on the business side, but you're actually breaking even or losing money, which is what I see more often than not. So then what happens is you get out of production, and now let's just say you were running it at a 50-50 split. You did, $1 million worth of GCI last year. You put the full $1 million on the business P&L, when in reality, now you replace yourself, 50% of that's gone because now that's going to an agent. So you just took $500,000 of revenue away from the business P&L. Oh, guess what? You're losing money now. So you've got to make sure that the business can stand on its own, because if it can't, with you on an agent split, when you disappear, the business is going to lose money. And a lot of people aren't thinking about that. So you really need to make sure you have your agent P&L and your business P&L, your team P&L, whatever you want to call it. But they're two separate P&Ls. And if you can do that and you can try to make sure that team is profitable on its own, the business is profitable on its own, that's the right way to do it. That's when you're ready to get out of production. So as you scale this thing up, you need to stay in production for a period of time until you get this business standing on its own. Super, super important as you scale up.
So what does the scaled up look like?
So scaling up, now you're just going to start to build out. So we run our business on something called EOS. So if you decide you want to scale up beyond that small team, I strongly recommend you look into EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. The book to read is called Traction by Gino Wickman. I strongly recommend you read that book and understand how that works. Ultimately, what you're going to do is you're going to break your business into a few different departments. So you are the visionary. Your job is to go out, have great ideas, and then you need to have somebody who's going to ultimately operate the entire business, and somebody that you can take all your 5 million ideas, which half of them are stupid, and there's some good ones in there too, but can filter through all those ideas, figure out which ones make sense, and then ultimately integrate them into the business. Most businesses, you're going to have typically a 3-wide leadership team. For us, I think we have 4-wide. So you're going to have sales, marketing, and operations. Like, that's typically going to be your 3 departments in your company. So up top, you have your CEO and your COO, or in EOS terms, your visionary and your integrator. Then you're going to have your leadership team. So most business, again, you're going to have like a director of sales, a director of marketing, director of ops, or management.
And we're missing finance.
Now, see, finance falls into ops in a lot of businesses. At our size, finance and ops are separated. But as you're scaling, you don't need a finance director of finance when you have 9 people on a team.
I think how EOS actually, this doesn't matter, but I think they have a sales and marketing director, operations and finance is how they break it up. But anyways, keep going. When you read the book, I want you to know we do it a little bit different because it makes more sense for our real estate team.
Sales, marketing, ops, and finance is what we have. So we have those as 4 separate ones. Some of those might be combined together at some point, and you break them out over time. But that's going to kind of be your leadership team. And then you start to support them. A big thing we found as you scale up in order to keep profitability as high as possible is leveraging, we call it our international team. You might call them virtual assistants. But virtually every person that we have stateside has somebody internationally supporting them. So that our people stateside, we live in California, salaries are very high because cost of living is very high. We can't hire all people stateside in California. It's just too damn expensive. So what we do is, because we have to pay a high price for talent in California, we then supplement them with a virtual assistant to take a lot of the tedious task off their plate, just like you should be doing as an agent. And now they can be significantly more efficient. So our stateside people are doing a lot of the client-facing communication, where our international team is more doing behind-the-scenes type stuff. So that's a big part as you scale up to maximize profitability. Is don't like hire 20 people in-house and like have 2 or 3 virtual assistants. Like if you have 10 people in-house, you probably should have 10 virtual assistants.
It's funny. I love all the advice you're giving, and I know it's all true because we've done it badly all the way through.
Yeah, and this is all from experience. We've effed this up every which way.
Yeah, so everything when you say, you got to do it this way, well, we didn't do it that way, and now we do. The virtual assistants, the separate P&Ls, the getting stuck in the messy middle. We've done all of these. So this is definitely not conceptual. It's learn from all of our mistakes. Last thing I want to go into before going into our widget of the week. At what point do you decide it's time for me to go to solo agent, to small team, to grow, to big team? When do you say this is it?
Well, I don't know that a big team is for everybody.
True, okay, but how do we progress, right?
Yeah, so I mean, from solo to small team, I think you're gonna find your lid. If you've ever read 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, John Maxwell talks about the law of the lids. Like, you have a lid. Everybody's lid's different, but you can only do so much on your own. And when you start hitting your lid, you've got to decide: are you okay with that lid, or do you want to raise your lid and get to a higher level? So that's at that point when you feel yourself hitting that lid that you can't go any farther where you're at, you want to break through that lid to get to that next level. That's when you need to go and build a small team out. I think Tom Ferry's calls it like a Navy SEAL type team. Like and I love the Navy SEAL team. I think that's one of the most profitable models out there. Like I said, if everything blew up tomorrow, like I'd probably run a Navy SEAL team. I think it's one of the most profitable models, and if you do it right, you can still maintain lifestyle. When you're a solo agent producing like crazy, it's hard to maintain lifestyle because you don't have anybody to support you. You can't go on vacation. I don't think that's healthy. If you're working 80 hours a week, I don't think that's healthy at all. You're going to burn out, or you're going to burn out your relationships in your life. So I think you've got to hire help and start to build that small team out. So I would say whenever you start to feel you're hitting that lid, whatever that is, most agents, I think that's, now again, it varies so much in California versus Kentucky, for example, where the average price point is probably 5 times higher here. But in California, doing about 24 transactions, so it's called like 15 million or so. I feel like that's probably about where you're bouncing off your lid for most people. To where you got to decide like, hey, I'm comfortable here and I like where I'm at and I want to stay here, or like, hey, I want to get to that next level. So I would say probably somewhere around 15 million, maybe 10 million, depending on your market. 10 to 15 is probably.
And it also depends on if you're buyer heavy or seller heavy, if you're carrying a wide area or small area. So yeah. Cool.
So I'd say 10 to 15 million is probably where it makes sense. Now you should always have an assistant. Like, I've never worked a day without an assistant. Like, I've always had an assistant because I don't understand why you would do things that are simple tasks that when you want to make $100,000, $200,000 a year, it doesn't make sense to me. And you can start with a virtual assistant, that's fine. So I've always had an assistant. So I think you should have that first and foremost. But when you start to build beyond that, 10 to 15 million is probably where most people will do that. And then you just decide again from there, you're gonna start to hit a lid. But I think with that team that I'm talking about, you could easily do, by just hiring those like 4 people around you, there's no reason why you couldn't get to 50 million plus, depending if you're in a luxury market, maybe 100 million with that small team. I think that's totally doable. Tim Smith's, I think he's had years, he's done like 500 or 600 million with, he might have a little bit more support than that. But him solo is doing like 500 or 600 million. Like, guys,
just do that. Just do 500 or 600 million solo with a small team. Just do that. Yeah. We should have that be the podcast. That would be better.
That's doable in a luxury market if you have the right SEAL team around you. So, and then you just got to decide like, hey, all right, we're hitting our lid, right? Everybody's at capacity. You just got to decide. Maybe everybody needs a virtual assistant at that point, or whatever the case may be. So it's just a matter of it. But I'll tell you, like, getting from like 50 million to like 200, that I would call that like your messy middle right there. When you start having like 10, 20, 30 agents, like that's real messy in there. It's really hard because the amount of staff you need to support that many agents, as we've seen, when we had 30 agents versus today, our staff count is not that much different, right? We have 115 agents today. Our staff count from when we had 30 agents, is it probably the same? I mean, maybe there's more virtual assistants, but our stateside staff count at 115 agents versus 30 agents, maybe a couple?
Maybe a couple.
Maybe a couple.
It's not
like
3 times as big, 4
right,
times as big.
Right.
Probably with the virtual assistants, it's probably twice as many.
With the virtual assistants.
With the virtual
but
assistants.
a bunch of virtual assistants at $3, $4, $5, $6 an hour. We haven't had to hire a ton of stateside people.
Correct.
So we've been able to go from 30 agents to 115 agents, hiring like 2 people on like stateside salaries and then the rest on international salaries. So
and systems.
It's huge. Yes, and the right systems.
Cool.
But just know that process, I'd say 50 million to 200 million for most people is really, really tough. But as you scale up, now we just focus on like, what is the capacity of all of our people? What are their lids? What's their capacities? And then we just figure out, okay, we can manage this many listings per person, this many transactions per person, right? So we start to figure that out, and now you really start to understand where you can go. Cool, well hopefully this added value for you guys. If it did, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up button, let YouTube know you enjoyed the show. If you want more of our show, hit the notification, subscribe button and notification bell. If you have questions, throw them in the comment section on YouTube. Brian and I respond to those personally. If you're listening on a podcast platform, hook us up with a review on there. Those mean the world to us. Also make sure you subscribe. And yeah, before we wrap the show today, I want to share something with you called the Whissel widget of the week. This is something we utilize in our business. It saves us time, makes us more money, or helps us have more fun. What do you got, Brian?
Mine is a new sticker on Instagram that I noticed the other day. And so stickers, when you're doing a Instagram story, you're going to click the little, it looks like a smiley face and kind of inside of kind of a square sticker looking thing. And that's where you can add mentions and locations and all that sort of stuff. There's a new one called frames. And what happens is you press the frame and it looks kind of like a mini Polaroid picture. And you can choose what image you want inside there. And so this is cool because it gets you a little bit more design on your Instagram story. You can have a background image and this image on the frame. But what I really love about it is it only reveals the picture if you shake your phone. It's just like an old school Polaroid picture. So it helps your audience engage a little bit more. It's a little fun tool, trick, hack. And I did it once on accident, and I showed my kids, and they're like, "Do it again!" So I had to keep uploading stories.
I've seen you posting these, and I didn't even know you have to shake it to see it.
Oh, so you just saw a blurry
I was like, why does Brian keep posting these things? I didn't even know that.
Once you shake it, and so you can add a little kind of thing on the bottom that says, silly faces, and they're like, well, now I want to see the silly face. You shake it, and
It's not intuitive.
well, then you should also tell in the text, shake to see picture or something.
Yes. All right, mine's just a very simple one. I'm up early. I'm now getting up at 4:45 because my workout's longer in the morning. So I had to add 15 minutes to my workout. So I had to get up 15 minutes earlier. That's just how my brain works. So this one, I wake up really early. I have a lot of ideas early in the morning, but I don't want to flood my team with those ideas early because especially sometimes I have negative things I have to share. I'd rather not have them wake up to it. So I like to schedule things to be received at a later time in the day. So this is very simple. Within Gmail, they have a schedule send feature built into it now, something that they didn't have for a long time. I don't know when they added it. It's probably been around a while, but you might not know it exists. So that schedule send feature could be really valuable to make sure you're not hitting people at 4:45 in the morning when you have an idea. I can type my email at 4:45, hit schedule send, and have it show up in an inbox at 10 o'clock after people have gotten to the ops, had a little time to catch up on stuff before I start hitting them with my ideas. So just a simple schedule send feature inside of Gmail can really help for those of you guys that either work really late or wake up really early. Could be really beneficial to help with your communication with your team. Cool, guys. Well, hopefully you got a lot of value out of the show today. If you want to stay connected, follow Brian and I. We keep it very simple on social, at Kyle Whissel, at Bryan Koci. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Whissel Way podcast.
See you next week.